What if one day you simply decided to walk away?
Not in the physical sense, no disappearing act, no grand exit, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. What if you chose to disconnect, to sever those invisible threads that bind you to others, not out of hatred, not out of resentment, but out of a quiet, desperate need to reclaim yourself? Most people won't understand. Distance, after all, is a strange and unsettling force. When you step out of someone's orbit, you disrupt a delicate balance. It's not just that they miss you, it's something far darker, far deeper. Your absence leaves a void, and voids are uncomfortable. Not because of what's missing, but because of what they reveal. Here's the unsettling truth. Your absence doesn't hurt because of who you were to them. It hurts because of what they can no longer project onto you. People don't see you as you are. They see you as they need you to be. You are the mirror that reflects their insecurities, their hidden desires, their unspoken expectations. When you walk away, you shatter that mirror. And what's left? Not the gap you've left behind, but the jagged edges of their own reflection. Think about it. How many times have you been told you're important, that they need you, that they couldn't do this or that without you? But isn't it curious how those words always seem to be more about them than about you? When you distance yourself, you shatter that illusion. And then they begin to feel something they can't quite name. Discomfort, anger, guilt, fear. But most of all, a question they don't dare to ask. What's left of me if you're no longer there? It's unsettling, isn't it? To think that someone might depend on you, not out of love, not out of genuine connection, but because you are the crutch for something they don't want to face in themselves. And yet, that is the reality of so many human relationships. We are mirrors, yes, but we are also crutches. When you decide to let go, when you decide to step away, you force others to wobble, to face a truth they've been trying to ignore. Their emotional dependence wasn't on you, but on the idea of you. And then comes the real mystery. What do they actually feel when you're no longer there? Some will say sadness, others disappointment. Some might even fill themselves with resentment, but the truth is they don't know. The void you leave has no shape. It's not a pain they can identify, not a wound they can heal. It's something more visceral, more primal. It's the echo of what they never wanted to admit. What goes on in their minds when you decide to leave? What shadows do you awaken in them? And more importantly, why does that decision to step away hold so much power? Why does it create so much noise in their souls? Today, we're not going to talk about the easy stuff. We're not staying on the surface. We're going to explore what really happens when you decide to step away, what others feel, what they don't dare to say, what they try to hide. And above all, why that act, which seems so simple, has the ability to lay bare the darkest corners of their psychology. Get ready, because this won't be a comfortable journey. There are no easy answers here, no truths that won't make you uneasy. This is a journey into the depths of human emotion, into the zones most prefer to avoid. But if you're here, it's because something within you already knows. Stepping away doesn't just transform your life. It shakes the world of those who don't know how to exist without you. And that's the real mystery we're going to unravel. When you decide to step away, something curious happens. People start to reconstruct a narrative about you. But that narrative isn't about who you really are. It's about who you were in their lives, and more importantly, about what they lose with your absence. It's as if they try to fill the void with versions of you that you don't even recognize. They begin to interpret you, analyze you from afar, looking for signs, patterns, anything to help them explain your decision. But here's the trick. What they're really seeking isn't to understand you. It's to justify themselves. Your absence forces them to confront a question they never wanted to ask. How much of my emotional stability depended on this person? And that question for many is unbearable, because in their quest to project strength, independence, and self-sufficiency, they are forced to acknowledge something deeply human, but also deeply uncomfortable. They depended on you more than they were willing to admit. And you know what happens next? They start to transform their perception of you, not because you've changed, but because they need to construct a version of your departure that's bearable for them. Some idealize you, as if your absence makes you more valuable than you ever were. Others, on the other hand, demonize you. They convince themselves that your leaving was a selfish act, even a betrayal, because deep down, it's easier to blame you than to admit that your decision destabilized them. The fascinating part is how these emotions don't emerge uniformly. People react in completely different ways, depending on what you represented in their lives. For some, your absence is like an open wound. For others, it's a wound they thought was healed, but your distance reopens it. And for a few, it's a mirror that reflects their greatest fear, being alone with themselves. This is where the real complexity lies. It's not just that others react, it's how those reactions change over time. At first, there may be anger or confusion, but as time passes, the absence becomes much more abstract. They begin to wonder if they really knew you, or if they were merely projecting onto you what they wanted to see. And that doubt is what can consume them. Because your departure isn't just physical, it's symbolic. It represents a change in a dynamic they didn't control, and loss of control always generates anxiety. You know what's most ironic? That many times people don't even understand why your decision affects them so much. In their minds, you weren't that crucial. You didn't occupy such a big place. But your departure reveals that you occupied more space than they were willing to admit. It's as if your absence illuminates the cracks in their emotional structure, the ones they always tried to hide. And what they feel isn't about you. It's about what your distance forces them to confront. There's something profoundly unsettling about how your stepping away can become a trial by fire for the relationships you leave behind. Often, your absence lays bare an uncomfortable truth, that many human connections aren't based on unconditional love or mutual respect, but on conveniences, power dynamics, and unspoken needs. And when you decide to break those dynamics, people don't just lose a person. They lose a support system, a point of reference, a balance that you unknowingly helped maintain. So here comes the question no one wants to ask. What's left of them when you're no longer there? For some, the answer is simple. They move on, find other connections, adapt their lives to your absence. But for others, your departure leaves a void they don't know how to fill. Because your presence, unwittingly, had become the anchor for something much bigger, something that starts to crumble without you. And the most fascinating part is how, in the end, this experience of stepping away impacts both sides. It's not just that they feel your absence, you also feel the consequences of your decision. But that's another story. Today, we're focusing on them, on what your departure triggers in their minds, their hearts, their lives. And believe me, that impact is much deeper than it seems on the surface. When you decide to step away, you don't just initiate a change in others' lives. You also become a catalyst for emotions they didn't even know they had. It's curious, but your absence is like a silent thunderclap. It doesn't make noise at first, but it leaves the ground trembling beneath their feet. In that moment, even if they don't say it, even if they don't admit it, an internal process begins that they themselves can't stop. The initial reaction is usually denial. They're busy. It's just temporary. They'll come back. They convince themselves that your absence doesn't mean anything, that it's fleeting. But while they try to cling to that idea, something begins to unsettle them. Deep down, they know something has changed, and that uncertainty, that why, without an answer, becomes a seed of doubt that grows slowly. Did they do something wrong? Were they too demanding? Did they fail to value you enough? The questions invade them, and with them comes anxiety. But there's something even more fascinating. Your departure forces them to recalibrate their identity, because when you spend time with someone, your energy, your presence, intertwines with theirs. You become a part of their life, even if it was never something explicit. So when you step away, they don't just lose your presence. They lose a part of who they were with you. And rebuilding that part isn't easy. Suddenly, they have to figure out who they are without you. And here's where something almost poetic happens. They start to remember you, but not as you really were, but as they need to remember you. Each person creates a version of you that fits their narrative, their pain, their understanding of why you're no longer there. Some idealize you. They were so perfect, so necessary, and I didn't know how to value them. Others demonize you. They only left because they never really cared. And a few, the bravest, face the truth. Maybe I never understood what they needed. It's at this point that the intrigue reaches its peak. Because while they wrestle with their emotions, you, from a distance, become an enigma. They wonder what you're doing, what you're thinking if you miss them. And that uncertainty is like a loose thread they can't stop pulling. But what truly unsettles them isn't the lack of answers. It's the lack of control. Because by stepping away, you broke a pattern, and broken patterns always create chaos. You know what's the irony of all this? That while they rebuild their world without you, you're also going through your own process. Because the act of stepping away isn't simple. It's not just taking physical or emotional distance. It's an act of courage. It's looking in the mirror and saying, I need space for myself, even if it means others won't understand. And that, though necessary, can be terrifying. And here's where I want to pause for a moment, because if you've read this far, I know something about this resonates with you. Maybe you've stepped away from someone. Maybe you've felt something crumble around you because of your decision. Or maybe, on the contrary, someone stepped away from you and you're trying to understand why. Whatever your situation, I invite you to reflect. How much of your inner peace depends on others? And how much are you willing to let go to find that peace? I want you to leave a comment with this phrase. The void doesn't define me, it frees me. Write it if you feel this message has touched you, if you've seen yourself reflected in any part of these words, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Because here, we talk about the things others avoid, the topics that make us uncomfortable but transform us. If you want to keep exploring the depths of the human mind, this is your place. But don't leave yet. We're not done. Because there's one more thing I want you to understand. Your decision to step away, while painful for some, can also be the start of their own growth, because sometimes the best way to help someone isn't by staying. It's by showing them they can move forward on their own. And that, even if they don't see it at first, might be the greatest gift you give them. So stay until the end, because what comes next isn't just a reflection, it's a revelation. One that could change the way you see your relationships, your decisions, and above all, yourself.